Welcome to Insight, produced in partnership with ValleyPBS. Today we are chatting with Brandie Carpenter of the Central California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, Gena Gong of Central California Asian Pacific Women, and Victoria Bernhardt of Central California Women's Conference. They have all generously agreed to share some of their experience with us. I'd like to thank you all for joining us today.
Thank you.
So, women of color, women empowerment, women business people, talk about the role of each of your organizations. Let's start with you, Brandie, and talk about how the organization was shaped and your agenda for today.
So the Central California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce was born in 1983, and it was the organizers and the founders saw that there was a need for Hispanic-owned businesses. There wasn't a voice for that particular segment of the region. So they started their Chamber of Commerce, and here we are today, still around. And really what our chamber does is we want to stimulate, obviously, economic growth for the region. We support the members that are a part of our chamber. So we are a member-based organization. And today, we just really want to highlight that, Hispanic-owned businesses are one of the fastest growing here in the business, particularly women-owned businesses, and just share all the great things that we do.
Now, why is it so important to have a Hispanic Chamber of Commerce as opposed to just being part and relying on the Chamber of Commerce that crosses all ethnic and racial and gender boundaries?
One of the forefathers is still here in the region and very active, and I've consulted with him, and he said really at that time, which we kind of find is still an issue, there's not really maybe programs that are in Spanish for those that are more Spanish speaking. We do see there's a difference in how they start their business and the education that they get. Sometimes it's comfort level, sometimes it's pride. And so we think, if we talk to them in a way that's maybe not only in their language, but just to showcase that we are here for you and we do represent.
And Central California Asian Pacific women have a different but similar set of issues, with the added complexity that you have more diverse linguistic groups involved. So talk a little bit about your work.
Sure. Central California Asian Pacific Women is a nonprofit organization. It's all volunteer. I am the president of the board, and it was founded in 1980, and our mission is to empower each generation of Asian Pacific women in the Central Valley. And it's a big mission, and it's very broad, but it's purposely so because we do facilitate different connections across different generations, across various ethnic groups. We are a Pan-Asian organization, and we're actually, I think, one of the few, maybe even one of the only Pan-Asian organizations in the Valley that focuses on empowerment specifically for women.
Which brings its own set of complexities.
Yes, it does.
Because in the same sense of Latino Hispanic communities, this sense that we are all sort of generic based on racial characteristics is completely false.
Right, completely. And that's where the whole model minority myth came from.
Right.
People see certain groups of Asian Americans who have been here a lot longer than others, and they see them succeeding. They see them, they see Crazy Rich Asians now, it's in the movies, and think that everybody's crazy rich, and that's obviously not the case, especially here in the Central Valley.
Although I'm willing to give it a try.
I wish I were that crazy rich. No, but we were really founded, actually as it's kind of in the similar vein that in the movement in the 60s and 70s, there was a lot of women's groups, right, that were being active. And a lot of Asian Pacific professional women found that they were not being included in a lot of those conversations. And so CCAPW was founded sort of as a professional development and networking and support group for professional Asian Pacific women. It was really a place where people could feel free to bring their children along, because as women, we are always responsible for childcare, even though, we have all these other movements going on. But when it comes down to it, a lot of the times we are responsible for the childcare. And so I wasn't around when they first began, but a lot of the women would bring their children, and since then the children have grown up with the organization and are now serving on the board, or they're now active in the organization. So over the years we have evolved. We have given out scholarships almost every year since the beginning, and so over 38 years we have now given out over $205,000 in scholarships, all from monies that we've raised. But recently we've also taken on other issues. We've done workshops on empowering women, on leadership skills, on demographics, educating people about the various demographics. And lately, in the last 5 years or so, we've been looking at domestic violence in the Asian Pacific American communities. And here in the Valley, because there's such a large Southeast Asian population, we've sort of focused on Southeast Asian and specifically Hmong Americans for these conversations.
And the Central California Women's Conference is another way to organize work, organize ideas, organize exchanges amongst women. Victoria, talk a little bit about the conferences that you organize and the organization that actually does put on these events.
Sure, thank you very much. Well, the Central California Women's Conference began about 31 years ago. It was the brainchild of Ken Maddie, who thought there should be some ability and some more formal process for empowering women in the community, the Central Valley. We are now in our 31st year of putting on a one-day conference to empower women at all stages of their lives. In addition to that, we have been able to integrate other ways to give back. For example, we too give out every year scholarships. This has been a fairly new thing for returning women to college, women who are returning to college, and it's very compelling stories. And also to women, young girls who are juniors or seniors in high school in the Central Valley. In addition to that, we give away every year to other nonprofit organizations. Central California Asian Pacific Women's Group is one of them.
Thank you.
We have now, just last year, given over $1 million through our years of doing this. So the day is set out with a keynote speaker at lunchtime. Over the years, we've had very prominent people. This year we have former California First Lady Maria Shriver. We're happy to have her. But in the past, we've had Amy Purdy was last year, for example, the Paralympic skier. We try to have women as keynotes who can come in and tell a story. Maybe not everybody can relate to, but certainly understanding that we all go through difficult times, and coming through it is really the key and the difference of where people end up in life. During the day at the conference, we have 21 breakout sessions. So they cover various topics from getting Social Security to dealing with aging parents, with Alzheimer's, with being tech savvy, to personal things such as how to stay fit when you're fitting in fitness when you're a busy working mom. So that's what we do. And then we have a warm-up speaker. Deepak Chopra is going to be our warm-up this year. Similarly, we try to get a motivation, get in there. So it's a day of full empowerment for our women in the Valley. And then in addition to that, the money goes to help other women and children who aren't able to attend and who have needs. The nonprofits we've had over the years have varied on social issues, on food, basic just getting food, to rape crisis centers, to Marjorie Mason Center, which is a place for domestic violence, to Girl Scouts of America. So we have multi-levels that we try to empower women and young girls.
One of the things that I think is so interesting is that this is really about communities forming themselves. Mm-hmm. They're self-defined communities. Each of these communities is self-defined. The second thing that I find so fascinating is the recognition of both success, very often personal success in the form of whoever is serving on the board, whoever is serving as the executives of these organizations, but also self-identification with those who have not yet made it to that place. And then the third piece is the obligation of those who have succeeded to help those who are in the process of succeeding. Mm-hmm. And then converting that into a series of programs, counseling, groups, support, sometimes material support, as you've pointed out, Victoria. Sometimes it's emotional support, as you've described, Gena, or practical support in helping people navigate linguistic barriers, Brandie. but each place, you have people who are basically bridge that gap between the successful and the in the process of being successful members of society. How do you ensure that that what you're doing has the impact that you desire? You don't have high overhead organizations. You don't have a bunch of staff who are running around with clipboards or iPads sort of taking down data. How do you know that what you're doing, Gena, is actually having the impact that you desire?
I guess, yeah, we don't necessarily have the clipboards. We definitely don't have staff. But what we can do is we can see our impact when we hear back from our scholarship recipients and say, you know, because of your scholarship, I was able to attend this college that I thought was out of my reach, or I was able to buy that lab equipment that I didn't think I was going to be able to afford, and so I was able to major in this, you know, whatever class it was. And so when we hear back, you know, it really does make an impact on us, because we know that our scholarship monies are being used for very, very valuable things that maybe without it, that student would not have had that opportunity. We do couple of our criteria are that the people that we give our scholarships to are very low income, and they're often usually among the first generation in their families to attend college. And so with those criteria, we know that those people don't really have other outside resources. And perhaps without that extra push from our organization, maybe they wouldn't go to college. Maybe they would take a part-time job, you know, in order to meet expenses and help their families or whatnot. And so when we see our scholarship winners, you know, graduating from college and coming back, oftentimes they do come back and contact us. Many of them do come back and eventually serve on our board, and that really helps to fuel our, you know, motivation and our desire to continue to do what we do.
And Brandie, how do you know that you're successful?
With like the small programs that we do or the educational lunches we provide, I mean, it never fails when they'll come up to us and say, you know what, I got so much out of this, how can I get more information? So we know that we're bringing valuable speakers and good resources to the members. I would say with our events that we do, the conference style events, when the vendors sit there and say, you know what, I closed 2 deals while I was here for 3 hours. And, you know, that's what we want them to get out of it is, you know, return on investment, of course, and make those connections. So we last year did a survey to all of our membership saying, what can the chamber do? You know, what have we done well? So we asked various questions, and the top thing that they wanted to see was more networking. So we just recently partnered with a networking group called ResCom, and we have now blended our lunches that happen every third Thursday of the month. And so their membership comes to our lunches, and there is just networking happening. We make sure that we have networking for about 15 minutes before the lunch. So it's been a great partnership. And again, with that, people just coming up to the board and shaking our hands saying, thank you for this. So that's how we really gauge if we're doing a good job, and also the survey. We're
all human beings, right? Yeah. We all want to spend our time wisely, and we all seek out positive reinforcement.
Yeah.
And if we're spending time and we're spending money and and people come up to us and they say nice things, well, there might be 100 people out there who don't think that it was that great. Mm-hmm. But 3 people say nice things, and we repeat the story of the 3 people. How do we know that what we're doing is actually having impact? How do we measure the results? Looking at, you know, our budgets constantly with everything we do. Are we getting more people month to month at our events? Is it going down? Why? What's our priority? What does our priorities really look like? I have an idea of what the priorities of the chamber should look like as president, but looking at the bird's eye view of what's happening with our membership, I mean, we really had to tie it down, and we did the top 4 priorities of the chamber, and being realistic, is that happening? No. So we recognize that those things are not happening. That's pretty much how we're getting a gauge on if we are being impactful. So. And Gena, how do you know?
Well, I was going to use the example of our work in domestic violence, in the area of that. We decided to take on that work because we didn't see anyone else doing it. And we knew it was not going to be a popular move. We knew that we were going to have a lot of critics, most likely. And we knew that there was probably going to be a little bit of pushback from the community, especially if we're going to focus on the Hmong community. Then the Hmong community might say, who is this group that's claiming to speak for us, right? And they're not going to really want to engage with us, especially if we came at it with the idea or with the attitude that we're going to tell you what's best for your community. And so we were very, very conscious and very mindful of not taking that attitude. And so we very, very carefully selected a few people that in the Hmong American community that we knew understood our intent and understood what we were trying to do is just to open up the conversation. And with our for our first forum, we kept it very small purposely because we didn't want a lot of outside voices kind of taking over our agenda and using it as a forum to blare their criticism or whatever it was. And so we knew we were in it for at least 5 years, and so we did a very small effort first. And with that, we kind of built, the trust and hopefully got a little bit more, I guess it's trust really on the part of other Hmong American leaders, of other people who worked in the system, worked as, maybe social service, social workers, domestic violence advocates, and kind of very slowly built our networks out from that first meeting to then the last one that we had was a public forum, and we actually had students attending too. And one of the students actually felt, I guess she was so impacted by some of the presentations that were being made that she actually came forward and requested to speak to one of our board members who happens to be a licensed psychologist to tell her that she was actually having issues herself at home. And so just knowing that people felt safe in that environment, that we created the space for these kinds of issues to come out, I think makes us feel like this work really is needed. And even if there are criticisms out there, somebody needs to take the step and be a leader, I guess, in making these conversations happen.
And Victoria, how do you know that you're being successful?
Well, first of all, we're 5 women on the board. We're all professional women, high executive, people who are very successful but feel the need and the obligation, because it's what's in their heart, to give back to the community. And I think that's what you're going to find with the young ladies next to me as well. It's always been on my heart to help young women, and I was honored to be asked to be on the board. I guess every board loves to have a lawyer there, but these amazing women. And what I have seen on my years on the board is this. One, certainly our event was sold out earlier than ever this year. We're only limited by capacity. We have the largest venue here in Fresno, and that's the only thing that limits us. So we know that is one marker. We're pretty much always sold out or close to it by the end of each year. So that's good. What we've also done, though, is with our grant program, it's been really amazing. Approximately 6 years ago, the grant recipients, those who are going to receive whatever money we have left over after the conference, which has now constituted a little over $1 million, we have an event where we hand out the money. But what we do is, before where we just send them the money, we actually have a reception. And the purpose of that reception initially was to get everybody there and honor them. They're the people in the trenches. They're the ones that are doing the work. But what came out of that was so amazing, in that you could have an organization that gives toothbrushes and toothpaste to farm laborers, children out in the fields. Those people running that organization met somebody else who provided some other service that their people could use. So it was this wonderful synergistic effect of people understanding that there are other resources out there, because maybe somebody who is doing a nonprofit is only in one little area, handing out toothbrush and toothpaste. But you've got another organization that helps with getting food, or another organization, a rape crisis center, those various avenues. And it's a good problem, but the board is the one who does the due diligence on the people who ask for the grants. And we have so many, it takes us about 2 days, in addition to getting all the paperwork ready first, to go through, and we do our due diligence, we do the presentation, and all we wish is we had more money to give out. And that number has grown so much. That's also how we know, one, that there's a great need out there. There are people in the trenches, and they need the resources. They're on their grassroots efforts sometimes. That's high. They could be something more than just a grassroots. We have all levels, but we make sure that we are helping those in the very fundamental. A grandmother's house, it's called Grandma's House. It's where kids come to get free tutoring for math in the outskirts of Fresno area where they may not get it otherwise, a safe environment for the children. So it varies, but we see the great need for it, and so we believe we're successful based upon that.
And as a recipient, can I just add?
Yes.
We're so grateful that a group like Central California Women's Conference is giving out these grants. I mean, they're not huge grants, right?
They're not.
They're not but big, but they do service a certain niche. And so there's a lot of very small startup organizations that are able to get grants from you guys that are not able to get them from maybe the Fresno Regional Foundation or Irvine Foundation, you know, because they're not large enough. They haven't been around long enough. They don't have the track record, but the Central California Women's Conference is able to kind of take a chance and give a small grant to these very small organizations. And so, yeah, I'm very grateful that we're one of the organizations too.
The other thing we do, Mark, on the other end is when someone has been a recipient, they have to report back to us what they've done with their money. And we try to give non-restrictive funds because a lot of organizations can get restrictive funds, but it only has to be for X, Y, or Z. And we like it to be, because it is smaller, that it is something that can have an impact there. It's not, you know, the $1,500 for the kitchen that they need to remodel where the kids come after school so they can have something nutritious to eat. We understand that won't kind of get there. So we try to give it as an unrestrictive if possible. So that they can use it where they find the need. These are the people with their boots on the ground.
What I find to be very interesting is that these are completely distinct areas of endeavor, but you're actually using your training for one purpose. So you're coming at this from different perspectives. How does being a litigator help you? Someone who makes arguments, makes cases, puts together evidence. How does that help you? How does that inform your work as a nonprofit leader?
Sure. Well, mostly what I do, and I'm on a couple boards, and usually it's because they want a lawyer to look over some contracts and give some advice when we have to sign contracts for our speaker, for our vendors, for the place where we are located.
So you're doing an in-kind contribution as part of your activities.
That's true, but I will say this. Those who do get asked a lot. And I make sure, and the reason I'm on the Central California Women's, at least I chose that as part of where I was going to put my extra time after a very busy week at work and having a family, is because I believe in what they do. I do see the impact. I do see, I want to say the success of it, but I see it making a difference. And it's where my heart is. Margaret Mead had a saying, I might mess it up, but never doubt that a group of concerned citizens can make a difference. In fact, it's the only thing that ever does. And so that's where I follow and get the joy that I get out of doing this and being a part of it and seeing the difference it makes in people's lives.
And Gena, you have so many different experiences. You also teach. How does that inform the work that you do?
I guess I can see, I'm not originally from Fresno. I moved here from Los Angeles and about 10 years ago. And when I moved here, I noticed that there weren't a lot of nonprofit organizations in the area. And I just kind of looked around and asked myself, why is that? And even I looked around in the Asian Pacific American community and I didn't see a whole lot of organizations there either. And so that's kind of how I found CCAPW as this Pan-Asian women's organization. Even though it's all volunteer, I saw that it has this potential to make inroads in all these different areas. You know, even though it started off as a professional networking group, they give scholarships, and now we're doing domestic violence forums. And so I just have this, I guess I myself have this need to always give back and to improve the community that I'm in, and to surround myself with like-minded people. And I think that's kind of where our groups sort of maybe have something in common, where we've found this sense of community in the Central California Women's Conference, in the Hispanic Chamber, in CCAPW. And I just think that, like your quote says, you know, we have another quote in the Chinese community says, strong women can move mountains. And I really love that one because, you know, even though we're not paid, we're all volunteers, if we all kind of unite around a common goal, and our board has very different strengths too, we can all move together towards that goal and accomplish things that we never really thought we could do individually, especially.
And Brandie, in terms of your professional activities and how that informs what you're doing. I mean, you are a natural connector. You're in sales. You connect people to products and services. How does that inform?
Yeah, you know, I've been in advertising, marketing for about over 15 years now. So when I actually got asked to be on the board, I had no idea what Chambers of Commerce did, to be honest with you. And when I sat there with very high-level professionals, you know, decision makers, it really opened my eyes, and I just learned so much throughout the years. I've been involved with this chamber since 2007, so this is my 5th term really engaging and holding an executive position. So I actually did secretary, treasurer, VP, and now I'm president, and it's been such a learning experience. But yes, using my skills in connecting with people, cultivating relationships, has really helped our chamber, you know, build partnerships and talk with donors, and I think it helps as also, as you can imagine, running a board. You know, I run a board of 12, and different personalities. You know, it's challenging sometimes, but it's been quite the learning experience, and I could not have asked for a better role, and that volunteer spirit definitely opened up, you know, back in 2007, and like us, we just have a passion for what we do, and where I work keeps me in front of the business community, so the stars aligned 2 years ago when I got voted in to be president. Yeah.
So community building, movement building, direct services, providing a path to prosperity.
Right.
I'd like to thank you all for sharing the work of Central California Women's Conference, Victoria Bernhardt, Gena Gong of the Central California Asian Pacific Women, and Brandie Carpenter of Central California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. Thank you so much for your services to the community, and thank you so much for your insights.
Thanks
Thank you for having us.
Thank
Yes.
you for having us.